Tim Strong, welcome, man. We met the other night, and I was like, you know what? Let's do a podcast together. I felt like we could work some magic here, and already we've had a pretty awesome conversation prior to the podcast.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking the time to jump on today.
No, Nick, mate, absolute pleasure, mate. And yeah, meeting you the other night as well. I just knew there was some good things that we can unpack for the benefit of some other men.
One thing that stood out for me the other night was you said we go to work to make money, but home is where we build an empire. What did you mean by that?
Oh, this is a good one to open up the podcast with. For me, it's been a journey. You know, I've been on a big journey for being in the construction industry for 22 years. And I've been through business and like scaled and grown some big businesses. And in business, you can sacrifice, or I mean, you have to. We're taught that we can do one thing or the other. That's like a rugby league player has got to play rugby league. He can't do dual sport and play both union and league at the same time. So we've got to make choices in what we do, and the sacrifice to go and get money. And money is just a currency. It's an energy flow. It's what I suppose allows us to do what we do.
It's a vehicle.
It's a vehicle, yeah. It's the ultimate goal of freedom, in what allows us to be and feel free. The energy flow of being able to do what we need or what we want to do and what we desire to do, the car that's in our garage, the house that we live in, the holidays we take our families on. So it's a means to an end, and 100% we need it. But what I learned on my journey is really what it means to build a kingdom. And that means that as a man, I need to show up for who I am. And, for me, it's been a big challenge is in the sacrifice of business, I also sacrificed my self-love. And I also grew this and founded this foundation of an identity of myself that wasn't me, but it was me inside that business. So that identity really held me to, sacrifice what was required, for my family and showing up, because I thought putting bread on the table was what was required, because that's all I watched my dad do. I mean, not only what I watched my dad do, but it's what I saw my dad do. Work 7 days a week, turn up, show up, put me through a really good education, and I'm thankful for that. But ultimately, what I then started doing was the same thing. So I was doing that in my family and growing the wealth and growing the money, but ultimately at the sacrifice of being around for my kids and being around for my wife. And so recently, in stepping into this of having a life, of having it all. So how do we work on our body, who we are, and our body, our physical, our health, our being. So our connection with the spirit, our connection with meditation, our connection to be at one with ourself, connection with God, and then balance. So connection with family. So for me, it's really important about my wife and my kids. Now, if you haven't got wife or kids, who is your number one or number two? And then business comes at the end. Now, I've always put business at the start. Now, if you work on your body being in balance for who you are, then the business is what provides the funds and the outcome for you to grow your kingdom. But if the king and queen, your husband and wife, are to be joined together, then you need to be home. You need to be present, in who we are and what we are, and how we can actually show up at that level. Now, I'm still working on this, Nick. Like I really am. Like this is something that's my life mission between now and when I do leave this planet, because I struggle in my shame and I struggle in my insecurities and my judgment of myself to actually be present in the family home, because so many years of neglect. So showing up, and what's that actually mean for my wife, and what's it actually mean for my kids, to actually be present, not just actually showing up and being there in the family home. And this is the challenge for me. And that's why I said the other night, at home is your kingdom, because that's your next generation. It's your queen. It's where you are meant to be. But I believe that, the way that we live these days, we're so taught to just go out and sacrifice. And I believe, and I was like, before he got onto, the podcast, what I was saying is, a big focus of me has really been to study what happened in the Industrial Revolution, because the industry that I'm in, construction, is where it came from, like, manufacturing. So we were given, I suppose, the responsibility to sacrifice what we really desired, to go and work, to pay taxes, to keep the government going, to keep people in business going for generations, for thousands of years we've been doing this. So our mindset is still stuck there. But how do we step out of that and actually build our kingdom? Because I totally believe that every single person has the right to have their own kingdom and have their own fortune, have their own wealth, and to pass down generationally what that means. Not just in the wealth factor, but also too, how do I go through my healing experience, my genealogical changes, and change the DNA for how my kids show up as a dad as well, because that means I'm breaking generational curses. I'm breaking generational holdbacks. And that's what a true kingdom is. Everyone has the ability to do it, not just the people at the top. Every person in every generation, because it's what you do now is what's going to change your bloodline in the generations to come.
You mentioned watching your dad go out and provide for the family, and you thought that's the way that you had to do it. A lot of men think that as well. I'm curious, what's your relationship like with your dad now?
Oh, look, we have a tense relationship, and I think the fact of me standing up for what my beliefs are and how I see the world doesn't align with the way he sees the world, and that's okay, and I'm okay with that. Now, I'll always love him. I love him to death. Doesn't matter what he would do or say or anything like that. It's just that, we have difference of opinions. And he's just old school because he's so stuck in his way. For me, I'm able to be able to see the way that I want the world to be, my relationships to be, the work and how I work, my work ethic, everything that I suppose to me has been very judgmental through my life. And not that he's been doing it on purpose. He's been trying to do what he was doing, which is better than what he was given. And he did an incredible job. The next thing I want to do is grab the gift that he's given me and take that to my family and take that to my kids. So, back on the question, how's my relationship? Yeah, it is strained, but I'll always love him. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I'll always love him. And I'll always, if he called, I'll always be there. It's just been hard to communicate with him.
I'm curious, was there, especially when you're younger, maybe before you had kids, was there an element of resent towards him because he wasn't there as much for you growing up?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I mean, as I was going through sport, and especially that was a big thing for me at school, I really did struggle with him saying that he would turn up, but then say mum would turn up because he'd be busy. I really did want him to be there. I wanted the accolade. I wanted the recognition from him. But then I suppose after a while, I realized, okay, he's working hard. Like, he's providing. Like, if he doesn't work, I can't be at the school that I'm at. So then I was able to offset that. But then I was probably doing work many years later that I was like, hang on a second. And a coach took me back to that moment and goes, okay, so this is pretty significant, because in part of what you've done with letting your dad be, you being okay with what your dad's doing, you've also let go of part of yourself, which is what we started working on for me as well. These times where I've sacrificed the needs and desires that I needed at that time from my dad, but wasn't able to get it because I wasn't able to voice it either. I wasn't able to go to my dad and say, Dad, I'm really disappointed with you. I actually really wanted you to be there. Because I was probably too fearful of anger, aggression, guilt, and all these things that possibly would come up. But I never tried it back then because I had also this respect, which was shielding the ability to me be also able to speak to my dad. And I've used that with my family now and my boys, because I'm like, hey, bear all. If I'm being a dick, tell me I'm a dick. Yeah. And I really do try to have those conversations with my kids. And man, my kids have sat there in front of me and given it to me. And it's hard. It's hard because it triggered the fuck out of me. And man, I sat there in front of them and cried But you know what? I needed it. They needed it, in doing that. But they've also acknowledged for me the change that I've had in myself, by wanting to present that vulnerability, and strength, I suppose, because we talked about the other night, like vulnerability versus strength. And I wanted to show them the strength by being vulnerable, and how that can actually change their lives.
It's that bravery piece.
Yeah, the bravery piece. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that's it.
Because, when you said that, it actually, so to give you context for listeners, in the mental health space, vulnerability is brought up a lot. It's like, be vulnerable, open up, have your feelings. But a lot of people perceive vulnerability as weakness. But instead, it's actually bravery to express yourself and to open up to certain people. It's a brave thing to do.
It's warrior. Like, it really is warrior style, to stand up and to be in a position. Like, you think of a warrior, hey, go to war. They're friggin' vulnerable, because at the end of the day, they could get killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in the strength of their art and knowing their own abilities, they're able to show up in a different way. So if we looked at that as a dad, as a man, that, vulnerabilities are mocked. When it comes to schools, when you're at school and you're in the playground, or as you're growing up, depends on the type of, say, background you're from, because there are different cultures that they show that vulnerability is like, shut up, don't cry and get on with things. So, well, it's so sad that we still have that, culture, in any human culture, that kids aren't allowed to cry, or people aren't allowed to show their emotions, or people aren't allowed to, open up and express themselves in a way that is healing. But then we get taught to suppress. We get taught to hold back. We get taught to, not be the true reflection that we deserve to be, through the ability of what is vulnerability. So I really love the phrase that was reframed that night, that, the night that we met, was that it is a strength. You have strength in being able to speak about the wounds, the challenges, the journey, and strength in crying and the ability to be able to shed your emotion. Especially, say, for example, how many men out there really do, share their emotion with their partner? And how many men out there are scared that in showing their vulnerability of crying, and I say can be vulnerable, but how can you reframe it that the strength of having your partner help heal what's coming out of you and hold you, that can actually free you to be this next version of who you deserve to be?
I think there's a lot of confusion though in the space, where you have these men's coaches saying, don't show all your emotions to your woman. Go to your friends and do that. But even so, don't cry and don't really express yourself. Like, as a man, how much should we share?
I share everything. I really do. And I always have. I am in my second marriage, and we've been together for, near 15, 16, or we've been together for about 17 years. But look, the biggest thing that I took into the work that I was doing when I first met her was to be totally transparent and open up about everything. Like, she knows everything about me, my past, my times of, being in sticky situations with the law, and she knows everything about what's going on with me. And for me, if I get to a point where I feel like I can't expose myself to her, in the way of how I'm feeling and what my needs are, then I'm only going to put myself in a cave of darkness. And if I'm in a cave of darkness, that's where I'm under attack by my own self. I'm under attack by the enemy. I'm under attack by my thoughts, my insecurities, my emotions, typically what's happened to me between the ages 0 and 7, where my foundation is built, of why I think and perceive who I am and how I'm made up. Typically that's my parents' voice as well, the people that are around you. So if I'm in that position, I'm not in the light. And if I'm in the light, I'm in exposure. So if I'm in the position of where I'm willing to heal, I'm willing to expose myself, and I'm willing to have the light shined on me. I'm willing to be in the spotlight and allow others to come in and support me.
How do we as men feel comfortable in opening up though? Because it is hard. As you said, it takes strength to do so. And I think it's having the right person to feel like you can open up. A lot of men may not have that. They may be in relationships, but they may feel like if they open up, that person may use that against them.
Yeah, so it's trust. So it's trust. As men, we don't trust. And the biggest reason we don't trust is because we don't trust ourselves. So it all comes back to our introspective voice. And if we are not willing to trust ourselves, then how are we going to trust others? So in that, you just need to be able to frame the conversation that you're having with the other person. Like, hey, I actually want to talk about something very vulnerable at the moment. I don't want to be judged, and I don't actually need you to be healing me. I don't need you to fix me. I just want to be vulnerable. Are you okay with that? So it's how we also frame it to the person that we're about to speak with, because that's probably where, setting boundaries in the approach that we are doing with the person that we're getting vulnerable with. And that's whether it be a relationship, whether it be at work, whether it be in any part of your life, whether you're a soccer player and you want to frame something to your coach. You are allowed to set boundaries in what you're doing. And then in the boundaries, in the confinement of those boundaries, that's where we find safety and that's where we find trust. Because we've set the boundary. So if you can set your own boundary into a place of, where you trust. Because sometimes too, like what you're saying, is that if I haven't framed that boundary with you, then you come in fixing mode. So you want to fix me. Yeah. I'm like, don't fucking fix me. So then you're triggering me because I'm like, I don't want you to fix me. I didn't tell you that I didn't want you to fix me. I want to just be vulnerable with you. I want to be exposing myself because I'm going through a challenge. I don't want to fix. I just want to talk it through because it's in the exposure that the healing happens. Like when you put things in the light will heal. In the darkness, it will rot.
Yeah.
So it's bringing it out of the darkness and putting it into the light. And that's what we're doing by, having that open conversation, that open dialect is just exposing it. Because once exposed, it's like you can't go back. So the person, that you expose it to has to be safe. But at the same time too, you've also got to put the boundaries in it. Because the boundary is like, hey, I don't want you to go to someone else and talk about this until we talk about it. I don't want you to, so you're talking about your needs. So make sure you speak to the person about the needs that you need at the same time of what's coming up and what you want to express.
Yeah,
It's pivotal because if you just go unleash all your feelings and emotions, one, that person may not be prepared for it, and fuck, what's happening here?
Then they're going to give a response that is going to trigger you, and you're going to shut down. This is where men go wrong, is they don't set those boundaries and those frameworks to create a safe space to actually open up. And then once they don't get the reaction they want, they shut down and they just don't share their feelings again.
100%. They go in, it's like a dog that's been kicked. It won't go near another foot of another human because it knows it's got the fear of being kicked again. And we do that. And that's our introspective voice. The conversation we have the most with anybody is a conversation that we have with ourselves.
Yes.
So in that's where we need to find the safety first. We need to find the safety there, then to bring the boundaries out, then to be able to then expose what we need to expose. And then in that, work out where the safety is. To go, okay, where am I finding safety? Why am I saying this? What's the result that I want to get out of this? And again, it could be also too that, like, hey, Nick, I just want to actually talk to you about something that happened Saturday night. Are you okay with that? And if you agree, you're like, yeah, okay. Okay, now I've got your permission. Now I've framed the boundary. Okay, Nick, what I'm about to tell you is actually for me, I'm going to be exposing something. I'm going to be vulnerable with you. I may get emotional. I don't want you to get offended by that. I don't want you to fix me. Do you mind if we have this conversation? You're like, yeah. Okay, straight away, you're not going to get defensive with me. You're not going to want to attack me because you're prepared. I've got you prepared. Yeah. And I think that's the part that we're not taught. We're not taught as men to be able to, how do we frame our conversation? How do we get to that point of being able to have a conversation that could be highly, I could be talking about the fact that, hey, that your girlfriend came and hit on me. I want to have a conversation, but if I don't frame it properly, I might be ducking your fist coming at me.
Because I feel like I'm getting attacked.
Yeah, 100%. You're going to be triggered. 100% you're going to be triggered. But these are the kind of conversations that we're not taught. And what taught me this, Nick, was being in business in the construction industry, where I'm working as a builder and I'm contracting to 380 odd subcontracting companies. So I'm dealing with a whole lot of emotion, not just with men that, predominantly men, but men that are running businesses, so high ego, okay, have got typically married and with kids, so the pressures in their life. So when they're dealing with me about something to do with possibly money or the fact that I've told them something that they've done is not right, like it's war. It's a war. It's a battleground. So this is where I learned most of these skills. And also too, I learned most of these skills by having really good coaches that were able to go, hey, Tim, stop making it about you, because it's not about you. How can you get out of that person what you need to without triggering them, without making it emotional, and actually able to get there? So learning the frameworks and learning the language that I can speak to show up to make things happen a lot easier.
Yeah. We'll start from creating that safe space of trust to be able to both of you open up.
Yeah.
Without the feeling of being attacked.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for men. Yeah, wow. And the construction industry as well, you working in there for 20 plus years, mental health is a big issue in the construction industry.
It's huge. It's
how
massive.
do we combat that? What do you think is the biggest contributing factor to that? Is it just the high stress environment, or?
Well, look, I think we've touched on it a little bit as well. And people are going into the building industry, and it's high pace, high stress. We're always watching program dates, and we're always watching dollars. So it doesn't matter what you are and what level. Things are happening on a program that need to meet a certain time. So there's the expectation that every single day you just got to be on and on. Now, outside of that, then you've got a whole group of guys that are coming into a building site that's like a schoolyard. And then certain people are bringing their own mannerisms into it that's antagonizing. So everyone's got triggers. Everyone's got what's going on. So for a man to step inside the ring, which is a building site, and be inside that octagon of going, okay, what's coming at me today, they're already on alert, let alone what's happening at home.
Yeah.
So what I learned through our business was to allow people to be able to come to work. And I end up spending almost 60% of my time working with the staff that we had on what was happening on outside of the business. So when they did show up, they were attentive, alert. So one, from safety for me was a big thing, but also secondly, production. So how can I get production with the staff that I do have? And so supporting them with what's happening outside, whether it's friends, whether it's a marriage, whether it's kids, whether it's their parents, whatever it is. And for us, we supplied in-house coaching. So we had, therapists and coaches that would work with our team. They had access to it full time, because I saw that with me. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have been able to scale a business the way we did. We went from, 17 staff to near 200 staff in less than 4.5 years. And sort of, went from big dollars, $9 million to near $300 million in 4.5 years in turnover. So the projects that we're doing. So we had new people coming into the business. We had new leadership coming into the business. We were reframing culture permanently in how can we have a better culture and everyone living the culture, which was pretty big. But the building industry is hard, Nick. Like, it really is hard. And it's not one thing's going to fix all. People just need to have the awareness that what happens at work is only one speck of what's happening in people's lives. But for a lot of people in the building industry, what's happening at work is one of the major things. And then we sacrifice what's happening on the outside. And in that sacrifice is where the damage is.
Talk to me about that period of your life where you did sacrifice what was on the outside, and you found yourself in what you describe as your lowest period of your life, and a bunch of things happened at the same time. You lost your brother, everything was happening in the business, family. How do you get through that period?
Yeah, actually, I just got goosebumps you asking that question, because it's so real to me. Like 2018 was a big year for me. That was the same time that we had to close down some of our businesses because we got bitten pretty hard by a big developer. In that, at the same time, my brother's cancer came back. He was a business partner, and the cancer came back from when he was 13 years old. And at the time, the doctors literally said to him, he's got 12 months to live. And then at the same time, I needed to work on what was happening within the business and keeping certain things going. So we still had some of the businesses going, but he had to pull out of the businesses as well. I ended up spending 9 months of my life living down the South Coast while still having my family in Sydney. So I was coming back on weekends. Mentally for me, I then just sacrificed myself. And I gave everything away that was what my dream was, what my hope was, to the point where, I wasn't even around home to help my wife with the kids.
Do you just shut off emotionally during that time?
I would say I was numb. And I'll tell you why the point was numb, because then, after 12 months, my brother did pass away. And after that, I showed up at the funeral and spoke at the funeral, but out of all the speakers, I was the only one that didn't cry. And so I was shut down from my emotion.
Oh, wow.
I did have big cries when he passed away, but I'd turned into this, I suppose, robo mode where I was just switched off from my emotion. Then over the next 4 months after that, my wife was and this is where some stuff really happened badly with my wife and because I was so shut down. She's like, man, you're one angry man. I'm like, what do you mean? And then I was just defensive. Then everything was triggering inside me. At the same time, I built a business for her. I did the fit out for her. At the end of it, she just hated me because of the kind of person that I was being. And I was being aggressive. And I can see that now. I couldn't see it at the time. And I was shut down emotionally. So I was starting to, so this is 14, 15 months now after the business. And then, 3 months after my brother passing away, that this was all coming to a head. And I was in sabotage mode. So I was sabotaging everything around me because my internal aggression, I was so angry at God. Why did he take my brother? I was so angry at myself that I couldn't, help him survive. I was angry with what was happening with the businesses, and I ended up giving some of the businesses away at the back end because I just didn't want to be a part of them. And, I then started seeking treatment. My wife was like, you need to actually get this fixed. So, this is going to be an issue with us. Because I was doing things and reacting certain ways that were very damaging. One for me, one for the relationship, and one for my kids.
Was there a moment where you just wanted out of life?
Yeah, I definitely, I went for a walk one day. We had a big blow up, my wife and I was like, that's it, I left the house and I wasn't coming back. Get a little bit emotional now. Yeah, it was real. I was done. I was just done. I didn't want to.
What were you feeling? You said you were numb, but in that moment where you walked out, you said in yourself that you're not coming back. What are you feeling though?
Hopelessness. I was just feeling I just couldn't do anything right. I just couldn't think. I was just shut down. I was hollow. I was empty. I thought the only option would be to just the better thing for my family was just for me not to be around. The better thing for my wife was just not to be around. Yeah. It was hard, Nick. It was, and again, before I jumped in the car, I went for a walk, and as I was walking, I just started thinking, this is the second time in my life this has been that big. And I just started processing certain things. Okay, what about my kids? What about this? And then over the top, it's like, I'm insured. It's okay. They'll live a better life without me. I'm worth more dead than I am alive, sort of attitude. So I was digging myself a bit of a hole. And then, I was sitting on top of this bridge, and I just remember, it felt like a hand on my shoulder, and it was like my brother's voice, just going, you've got what I don't have. And that sort of just rocked me. It's like, I was looking around going, what the fuck was that? And then I just started thinking about, like, what am I doing? Because I was so far in the hole that if I had jumped in the car, maybe I would have done something that I was thinking about doing anyway. That little tremor of being able to like just go, okay, I do have something that he doesn't have, and that is life, and that is to be able to. I got the opportunity to heal. He didn't. He tried. So that was, I suppose, a moment for me that woke me up to going, hang on a second, I need to get help on this. I need to get further, deeper help on why am I having these issues around darkness. And at the time, I wasn't that guy that mental health, like, that being in depression was a real thing. I've always been an optimist. I'm like, what is it? I never understood it. But in that moment, I was like, whoa, I'm willing to sacrifice my life to prove a point because I wasn't winning an argument with my wife. I wasn't winning the life that I was wanting to win. So I'm willing to do the ultimate sacrifice, which would affect fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Absolutely affect everybody.
And you don't see it at the time.
Well, I saw it at the back end of my brother passing away. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was so optimistic that, he passed away pretty quickly at the back end, but, I felt that he could have done better with things with his kids, like, in the avoidance of facing the fact of death. He also avoided saying goodbye.
Oh, wow.
So, and I believe that's something that's big in our family, big in my family, is that willingness to sacrifice, that willingness to just go for the fight, and not sit back and just sit in ourselves and go, what is it that we truly need? And what are we truly willing to face? What are we truly willing to open up and heal and feel? That was some pretty tremendous time, for me to go through at that time of when that would have broken my family, would have broken my kids, would have broken everything, being, in that position. But now, like, I look back and I do thank God for, for whatever that was, that tremor, that voice that I heard in that moment of my absolute darkness and weakness. And I feel for people who don't have that, say, connection to hear that in those emotional moments. But I can see also too how close and how easy it is to then just do something that is stupid, that is silly, that isn't the outcome that they really want. Because sometimes we're in so much pain, we just think that in ending our pain, that we can inflict pain onto others, or that takes the pain away from others, but we don't realize the consequences afterwards. And I'm grateful, man, that I got through that. Really am, because, I've had like the last 18 months, 2 years that I've had, say, just recently, with my kids and being around home and being present and being, in this style of life that I've never had before, has been pretty amazing. And the impact that I can see that I'm having on my kids in a completely different way. And trying to show up a better husband and a better father.
That's beautiful. And I thank you for sharing that, because, as we said, it's brave to open up and share those experiences. So thank you for doing that. You mentioned God. Are you someone that believes in God, or was it that moment that kind of shifted something within you?
Yeah, look, I've got a big faith in God. I got that back in 2000. I think it was 2009. Actually, no, it would have been earlier. 2006, I think it was. 2006. I was at a men's conference actually at church, and I wasn't raised in, say, in a Christian family, but yeah, I was definitely seeking support at that time. I had a lot of challenges going on at the time, Nick. I was facing 9 years jail.
Oh, really?
So I'd been a bit of a rough dude as a younger fella. So I had 16 sort of cases against me. I was going through a battle, and so I was looking for something. And at the time, someone sort of, I'd say, forced me to go to church. But then when I was there, I was like, whoa, what is this? And I felt, this release in my heart in a moment that I had curiosity over for many years. Then when I met my wife, she's a very, devoted, Christian woman. So being around her and just seeing the faith and the love and the joy that she has, in the last few years, especially, it probably kicked in really big around my brother, and I lent into God and prayer, and I lent into faith in those moments. Even with him, and even in the background, it was so cool to even speak scripture into him, and then also see the battle that was happening in the last few days. It looked like a spiritual battle going around him as well, for what was going on. Then I went into I hate God phase after that, because I was like, why God, why would you take that? And then now, for what I do, God is being in faith, in prayer, I'm in that every day now, and I can't start my day without, being thankful for the things that I do have, and the gratitude that I get from that, and get from my faith. I believe that, in God we get healing, and I believe that in my healing, that's where I've actually sought refuge in standing in the light of God, and looking at the things that, Jesus has done, for our sins and for the people that we are and the people that we can become living Christ-like. And it's been a big challenge, a big change in my life in the last 2 years, massively. And recently, in the last 6 months, I'm a part of a group of men that we catch up a couple of times a week, and they're from all over the world. And, we are having different conversations with our souls now. And there's a really good book on this called Conversation with God, because in that conversation with God, you are able to reframe the conversations that you're having with yourself. And I believe that's been a big part of my healing in the last, say, 6 months.
I'm on that journey myself of seeking to understand and build a relationship with God. I think God's within us, whoever you feel God is.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a big disconnection within society right now, is that lack of God within people. As in the youth, they're so confused. They don't know who they are. They don't have that connection to faith. They feel like the world is on their shoulders and they have to do everything themselves. But you need to draw strength from something.
Yeah, you do.
How do we, without pushing religion and stuff on people, how do we get this youth to understand there is faith and there is hope out there? There is God, universe that you can draw strength from.
Look, I love this conversation, and it's a good conversation to have, because I don't believe that there is this paradigm around religion. I'm not a big religious person, and religion is, I suppose, the churches. For me, to have a relationship with God is to have a relationship with yourself. To have a conversation with God is actually to have a conversation with yourself for what's going on inside you. God is in you. He's not an external thing. God is inside you. So we have a soul. Everyone will go, yeah, you got a soul? Yeah, I've got a soul. Okay, in our soul, we have a connection with God. Now, like you're saying, it doesn't matter what type of, person or thing that you are connected to, but you are connected spiritually to something. And having that innate ability to be aware of that means that we're also able to have the innate ability to release and let go of things, because that's what surrender is. And a part of one of the things is, take a knee. So take a knee is a form of surrender. Okay. And then the other part of it, the journey, is to die to self. So what is dying to self? So to me, I've been on this journey of going, what does it really mean to die to self? and it's going back to going, well, what is it that has been? So in my perspective and my conversation with God, because the thing is, you know what? Every single person's allowed to have a conversation with God. And this is where I believe that religion does get it wrong. Like there's certain religions, no, you don't read the Bible. We tell you what's in it. We dictate how you learn and what you can learn and what your connection is. No. Fuck that. Because what it really is your conversation, your connection with God. And out of that is using, like, how does God speak? I mean, if you've read the Bible, I mean, one thing, or read the Quran, or read whatever you do, God isn't being vindictive to humans. Jesus didn't, come on earth to create a ruckus and to create negativity or talk down to people. It was all, we are one. So our conversations with ourselves through having a connection and conversation with God is the innate ability to heal the way we speak to ourselves, our wounds, our triggers, our past. So to die to self is to let go of what has made you who you are right now, to stand in the presence of who you are, to be ready for the next day, and not to be held back of the past and the shame and the guilt and the fear and all the things that we tamper with and we struggle with every single friggin' day as a human, to be able to set free and to be present for who you have been made to be in the presence of God, in the presence of who you want to be. Okay? God is in us. It's our choice to connect with that part of our being, to be connected to God, and also give him our burden, give him our fear, give him our wounds, so we can stand in our presence for who we are. So to me, that's what I've learned of what dying to self is. Now, other people are going to have their own arguments, and I'll probably get ridiculed by a lot of Christians that are like, hang on a second, that's not what. So I don't care what, because this is my connection. It's my journey. It's my story with God. So like, you can't tell me and judge me because I'm not being, disciplined to a certain way that the church says that I need to be. And I think that's part of a big issue at the moment that we've got in what faith, religion, and everything is, because a lot of it's just friggin' judgment. Because like, I'm better than you. I've got a better connection than you. It's like, what? Stop it. Like that is complete judgment, and that's totally opposed to what we're trying to do by bettering our conversations with ourselves through connection with God.
Yeah, I feel when man gets involved in religion, it corrupts it.
Oh, 100%. It's also been used for a tool for manipulation for years.
Yeah.
So who wouldn't want to try to grab something that's one of the most powerful things that we can do as a human and try to use it as a way of control? Like it's only right.
That's a rabbit hole if you're on the page of believing this higher power is trying to shut off religion in the world.
Yeah.
And as we can see all the issues that's happening, it's religion is dying, the connection to God is dying, and we can see everything that's happening off the back of that. And it's sad, but I feel like it's going to swing back the other way. And they say Jesus is coming back, but I feel like it's just the connection within us is going to come back within this world.
There's a big movement happening at the moment. I say throughout the world at the moment with men. Like we do need to stand up. Like we have been cowering for years, and looking at, waiting to be rescued. Women have had this, big feminine rise, even in churches. Like there's a big feminine presence, and that's amazing because that's freeing, them from what has been done. Like Industrial Revolution, men worked, women were told to stay at home, clean houses, look after kids. But like, I know for my wife, she tried staying at home, and then at the end, like she needs to get out there and work. She needs to show, and she needs to show up for who she is. And that's me lifting her up, where there are still that paradigm where men are like, no. I'm the leader. You're the servant. It's like, no, like we've got to get rid of that whole paradigm.
Can I ask you though? You speak about getting rid of that paradigm of women staying home, but the rise of divorces and relationship breakups because women are working and they're doing their own thing, which, yes, I believe women can go out and do their own thing, but the rise in that has resulted in the breakdown in relationships. Is that just we're going away from traditional roots, or that traditional way just doesn't work anymore? Or like, what do you feel like?
What do you think the breakdown is though?
Divorce rates are so high these days. Though.
But what's breaking down?
The breakdown of the women are not, how do I put this? Women are not taking up not wanting to be the traditional stay-at-home mum, look after, raise the children.
So whose expectations aren't they meeting?
I guess society's, man's.
Man.
Mm.
Yeah. So what needs to happen? What needs to change?
The man's expectation.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, like this is an introspective voice. I'm glad you got there because that's what it is. I mean, and trust me, this has been a battle for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, hey, I'm a provider. You know, like I'm going to give you the life. You live at home and you stay at home. Like I'll provide all the money.
Yep.
But then it got to a point where it was like I could see her being a caged tiger. I was like, hang on a second, this is not good for her mental health. And it wasn't, because my wife was going through some battles. After the last child, she went into really bad, what do they call it? Like,
postpartum depression.
Yeah. So postnatal depression.
Yeah.
So she went into postnatal depression. But to me, I looked at it, I went, oh, hang on a second, because me being the optimist back then, I was like, okay, let's look at this. What can she do? Then, once she got out in the workforce, so then what did we do? So then we said, you work, we'll get a nanny. So then we got a nanny, and then we started getting help and support around our family. So we had that. So the ability then to look at that, and again, 100% her wage went to pay for that nanny. So she technically working for free, but she had freedom. She had the ability to get out of the Gugar brain of being at home all the time and actually go and show her worth and her value that she needed to show. Now, to me, the rise of the woman, the rise of the feminine, is the ability for them to be put in the light and put on the pedestal for what they believe. Now, I think it's gone too far in some respects, and there's also a lot of men out there that can't handle a strong woman. Mate, I've been through it. I've struggled sometimes with my wife. I mean, she runs 4 businesses by herself now.
Yeah, wow.
And she's a powerful woman in who she is and how she wants to show up for her and her people, her community. And you can't take that away from her. And the growth in what I've seen in her as well, you just got to find ways of support. Now, if I had have worked with my insecurities through that period of time, I would have hacked her. I would have sabotaged her. And was there times that I did? Fucking oath. There was. Until I had to pull myself up, or my coaches had to pull myself up going, hey, Tim, what are you doing? But I've been one of her biggest fans in doing that. So I look at it and go back to your question, what is it? And I think that, as men, there's a really good book, The Way of the Superior Man.
Yep.
Really good book. It completely changed my life to understand the feminine and the masculine energy. Now, I know that's all cuckoo, woo, and a lot of people take it the wrong way, but it's the principles behind that book in what our responsibility is as a man, the masculine, it's our responsibility to bring the feminine out. Now, what I've seen is my wife at work, she needs to get into her masculine. So when we're at home, if I keep coming home with my masculine energy from my business and my work, and we're hitting there, we're like 2 rams hitting each other. So we're in battle, we're in conflict. So then as a man, it's my job to step out and bring her feminine out. So I need to love on her. I need to make her feel safe. I need to provide the area and the spaces that she needs to, so she can show back up in the house and leave the masculine at the door. Okay, because that's where the divorce happens. That's where the state of play is, where, again, 2 people then are living in a house that they're feeling unsafe. And I'll be totally transparent with you, Nick. Like, I have this playing out at the moment in my family, where we're both working so hard. We're both in our masculine, and we're a little bit at war at the moment. Now, we've got to change that. I've got to show up differently. Okay, I haven't been showing up properly. So I've got to now bring that feminine out of her. So what I'm preaching to, what I'm talking to you about, it's a daily practice. It's not something that you do. And that's why when I go through body being balance, the balance, one of my tasks every day is in my balance is to send my wife or my kids a text message every single day. Okay? As part of my call for, is to be in power. And by doing that, and by submitting and going, hey, listen, I'm grateful for you. What you're doing is great, fantastic. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for the things that you do for me, on a daily basis. And I think that's as men, if we want that change, we can see it. Divorce rates are high, 100%, but it's typically a clash of egos. It's a clash of the masculinity. Because if you, as a man, bring that woman back into feminine state, there's no conflict. There's just love, acceptance. You're not guilting her into doing anything. She feels that she can show up and expose that feminine energy, and it's when that's shut down and there's two masculines. Well, you're never going to get the result that you want. So that's where I believe that what causes the divorce rates at the moment, and it's hard because what everyone's doing is just reflecting a mirror of their own insecurities on everyone else. So, and that's what you do in a relationship. So the reasons why you partner with people is because typically you're seeing something as the wound of yours that they also bring comfort to. But then down the track, like my wife and I have both been seeing coaches and counselors now for 15 years, we're healing. So like the volatility between our relationship can go through cycles, because we're both learning to be this thing that we've never been able to be, which then creates, I'll heal something, but then it'll create conflict in her because she sees that she wants what I've got, but she can't. And I see something that she's got, but she can't. So it's triggering the crap out of my wounds, and I blame her. You know what I mean? So then in the blame, we're in the fight. But all I'm doing is projecting my blame of something that I'm insecure with, that I can see in her.
Yeah, it's just a back and forth. But at the end of the day, our partners are our biggest healers.
Big time.
If you have that,
if you have that
the mindset to look at it that way.
If you have the relationship there and are able to sit back and go, oh, like, and I did it the other day. Like, we went for a walk and I was triggered. I got triggered by what she said. I said, hey, can you just give me a moment? And then the whole walk, I knew it was going to frustrate her, but I couldn't do anything about it. I had to sit there by myself and feel the trigger. But at the back end of the walk, I said to her, I said, thank you. I said, thank you for that trigger, because you just allowed me to, in that 45-minute walk, process something that I wouldn't have been able to process if you hadn't triggered me. So it was a gift. And I thanked her for the gift. I said, thank you for that. I know that you might be upset with me. I know you're going to be frustrated with me, but that was a really big gift for me. So thank you.
What do you feel the secret is to keeping a relationship? I know it's up and down, but is it the communication?
Look, communication, definitely, like tonality, language.
Yeah.
How you speak. Talking about your needs versus what the other person is. Talking about how you feel. Versus blaming the other person for making you feel, because we can only feel what's happening inside of us. No one makes us feel something, because it's a trigger and it's a wound inside of us. And when we face that and we're aware of that and we're willing to accept that, then everything that gets put in front of you is just like that shiny mirror in our eyes. Like, oh, I hurt. Okay. And then you got a little bit of a blind spot for a little period of time until your focus comes back. Now that's what wounds and triggers are. So, yeah, I mean, once we understand the language that we have and how we project that back on the other person, and that's why, again, working big on the introspective voice that's going on in your head, because typically what you're going through and what you're processing for yourself is what you're projecting at others.
Yeah.
From that point of view. And the first person you're going to do it to is your wife or your partner, in what you're going to do. And they're going to do the same thing for you. So in that don't receive the projection as something that is solid, as in that's what they're telling you who you are, you can easily turn around and reframe it and then go, I'm sorry that you actually feel that way. I'm sorry that you feel that I hurt you. And if I did hurt you, I'm really sorry about that. Instead of going, hang on a second, but you hurt me too. You know, and then you start the conflict, and then you're getting into the fight of, you know, what doesn't need to happen, which is where most people end up. And then you go and drink, then you do this, you do that, and you get away, talk to your mates, and your mates justify your existence because they're reframing the story that's in your head.
Yep.
And then you're going, fuck, see, I'm going to go home now. And it's like, take that cape off, and because it's not going to do you well. And then if you don't, that's where you'll end up in a separation and a divorce.
I love this conversation that we're having right now, especially around, because no, you really put me on the spot there when I brought up the traditional family and how, I guess, that worked, but did it really work? That's the thing. Because it got me thinking, it's like, yeah, people may have stayed together, but were they really happy, especially the women? Were they really happy being stay-at-home moms? Because I know I love my daughter, but when I'm home with her for too long, it drives me crazy. So imagine them staying home all the time and not being able to step into who they want to be. So now when I look at that, it's like, it's just a man's insecurity pushing a woman down to say, this is your role.
Yeah, big time. It's because we watched our dad do it.
Exactly.
Like, I can see it. Like I can see the insecurities in my dad now. I couldn't understand what it was when I was a kid. But being, you know, the ages 0 and 7 and sitting back, because that's when we, you know, neurologically learn all our emotions and our connections to emotions. So as I'm watching him from a distance, as a young child, I'm watching all those patterns, and you're seeing that. And now I can look back at it and go, now I can see the play. Now I can understand why he reacted that way. And then I can understand also too why I started doing that, because it's what I was programmed to do from a subconscious level. So we pick up those patterns, and when we're willing to face the fact of that we are programmed, you know, what if that we do come out just, you know, once we're conceived, we are pure. Now it's the environment that we're in for that first 7 years that programs us. So if there's viruses in that period of time, we're going to get the virus.
Yep.
Yeah. So we got to understand that. And once we're willing to and go back and face that, then you're able to find some really true healing and to understand how you can live a better life.
It breaks that cycle as well.
Big time.
And speaking into fatherhood for you, what's it like being a dad and, you know, leading your family?
Oh, look, I love being a dad. I want to challenge myself to be a better and better and better dad on a daily basis. I do struggle with the presence, and I do struggle sometimes with how to create that relationship with the boys. And I mean, my oldest boy's 25, then I've got a 21-year-old, then a 14-year-old, 11-year-old. So I've got 4 boys. And, you know, in that, I can see the kind of father I've shown up to being. And interesting of late, I've challenged myself to work with one of my sons, my 21-year-old, to go and heal, because I know I've been the hardest on him out of all my boys.
Why so?
I could see the way that he was triggering me. He always triggered me. So he's a mirror to me. Like, he triggers me because he's not conforming to my ways. He's not conforming. I can see things that are in him that I'm like, oh, dude, that's lazy. What are you doing here? And so I'm nitpicky at him, and I always have since he's been younger. And that was just my immaturity as a dad. Because I'm not that now with the younger 2 boys. But the older 2 boys caught me in my peak of growth in business. So they're lucky to see me maybe on a Sunday. Realistically, they didn't see me during the week because I was up and gone by 5 a.m. in the morning. I didn't get home sometimes until like 11, but sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning because I was working that hard. So they never really saw me. And when they did see me, I was just an angry dude. So they used to just be, I mean, again, I've had conversations with them. They were scared. They could hear my car tires come down the road, and they would say that I would go running to their beds if they heard me coming.
wow.
Like, and this is hard for me to hear, when they got older. But with my second oldest now, I asked him. I just had this brain spat 4 weeks ago where I was like, kiddo, I love you. I'm going through some reflection at the moment of myself, and I'd like to do therapy with you. Within 15 minutes, he came out of his bedroom, came down and gave me a big hug and said, Dad, I'd fucking love to, and do it. I said, and I spoke to him about the reasons why I wanted to do therapy with him. And we're seeing a psychologist together, and then we're seeing the psychologist apart. And that's purely because if I want to truly break down generational stuff, because I can see that I treated him very similar to, say, I felt that I was treated as a young fella. And so if I know my dad wasn't doing all that on purpose. He just knew a programming way he was. And he only knew as good as what his parents were. And his parents were revolting, if I can be totally frank. So I think he did a great job. But for me to then stop the generational pass down, I want to do this process and see how this goes. Because then when he goes to have kids, and if we heal the trauma that I've also created in him and the trauma that he's also created in me, and we're both able to let that go, then I'm breaking generational curse. I'm breaking it so it won't go down, and we're able to, this next generation can be healed. Like that is my gift to him, and I see that massively, and a gift to me too, because I get to now get a stronger bond with him, and we get the transition between being father-son just to being mates. And we've been speaking about that in therapy. What's it mean? What's it look like just to be mates? Because you're becoming, you are a man now. So how do we now build a new relationship based around that, instead of creating a relationship of disconnection because we weren't able to transition that father-son figure? We're always going to be father-son, but into how do we now communicate at a different level, where what he brought up, he had dependencies on me and he needed me, but now he doesn't, because he's doing his own thing. He's doing all these other stuff that he wants to do. So there's no dependency. So our communication dropped away. But how do we pick up the communication and make sure that we do collaborate and communicate and love each other at a deeper level for the rest of our lives? Where instead of just being what some dads do, they just go to shutdown. And and then suddenly the family's split, and then suddenly like you catch up once or twice a year, and that's it. I don't want that with my boys. I want to be a part of their life. I want to be there for them. I want them to be able to call me, and I want them to be able to lean on, and I want to be able to shortcut their existence so they don't have to go through all the fuck ups and all the deals that I've been through. And the only way that's going to happen is them to have absolute trust in me, and me to have absolute love and trust in them.
Man, I respect that so much, because I wish my dad did the work and I could do therapy and build a relationship with him in that way. So in a way, I envy your kids a bit, because for you to do the work and to be building that relationship, not many kids my age get that opportunity with their own fathers, because they are very much shut off. And I love my dad, but what you just described with the family being split up and not seeing them as much, that's my situation right now. And I know it affects me still, even though sometimes I say I've dealt with that. I feel like I've just pushed it to the side a bit. And yeah, I wish for one day that my father could do the work that you're doing.
Yeah, and in that though, you can also still lead the situation. It doesn't come down to being the father's a responsible person either. I think that where, it is, if you've got a desire for that, it just comes down to sharing him with the experiences that you're going through and leading that conversation to allow the conversation to happen for him. Because what I see it with my dad too. They get to a point where there's so much, bottled up whether it's fear, anxiety, shame, guilt that they've got inside of them, which is stopping that connection. But I think as also as kids, I think it's our job also to go in there and reach our hand into their heart and go, you know what, I've got you, I love you, I see you, and it doesn't matter what, I'll always be here for you, and I want this connection. And how do we do that as sons as well? And how do we create a generation of sons that can do that? Because they're not going to go and get the healing at their age now. They're too stuck in their ways.
Yeah.
And I've been on the journey, I suppose, since I was 24 years old. I always had this, I knew something could be different. I don't know what it was. And I started a journey. I remember getting mocked. People go, "You're a life coach?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've got a life coach." And they're going, "What do you mean? There's nothing wrong with you." I said, "Doesn't need to be something wrong with me." And it's that approach. But this older generation, they find it hard, man. Like they're hard asses. They've lived it hard. So have we, but we've also been exposed to a lot more. Like we can have these conversations like you and I now.
Yeah.
They weren't doing that back in their time. These kind of conversations happened at the pub over a few beers. And it was typically naming and shaming and everything that was happening that was bad in their lives. That's what happens in pub talk. It's not like, "Hey, Nick, let's go and fix the way we deal with our wounds." It wasn't that kind of conversation back then.
No, it was, "Hey, mate, how's it going? Yeah, living the dream."
I think sometimes we just need to take our fathers on a mushroom trip, Get them to a point where they can actually just let go.
So I'm assuming you've done mushrooms then.
I have, yes. Yeah.
What's that experience been like for you?
Really good. So going back to when I was talking about being in a really difficult, dark place, I started doing research back then, and what I found was a guy that guided me through, using float therapy and mushrooms. And obviously at the time I had float tanks, a business with float tanks. So I was using and being guided through emotional breakthroughs. And if I hadn't done that, I probably would have been divorced back then. I would have been separated. I would have been an angry man. I wouldn't have been able to heal. It was what cracked me open to allow that emotion to be released inside me that I was holding on to. It was a number of, I think I did all up about 14 different sessions. And through that process, I was able to, connect to myself on a deeper level than I think I ever would have been able to naturally.
Yeah, wow. The biggest thing I took away from my one mushroom experience was, that we are very much so connected. Everything. We're connected to everything in this world. We're all energy. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it when you realize that. And you remove your ego. That's the big thing.
Well, it does. It drops the ability to allow that ego come in place, and it combines the feeling, the emotions, and the state of play for what's happening in your body without the control of the ego. That's what I love about psilocybin, because that's what it allows you to do. And for people who are so controlling, and that was me, I was, absolute control freak. And it worked really well in business. It allowed me to, grow and scale big businesses. But when it came to me, I was then controlling how I felt. I was controlling, like I'd do everything I can to be in control. And what it taught me, it was like, leave your sword, leave your shield at the door, come in and approach. And like, it's not my choice of the journey that I'm about to have. It's what's actually inside me and energetically what's going on. Whether it was sitting there in laughter or whether it was sitting there bawling my eyes out and letting go of that deep pepped up emotion that was what was making me angry. Trying to hold that down. It took that away. It sort of takes the hinges off the doors and you have no control. And it's a gift. But it's also a hard thing to do.
Yeah. Is it something you often do, mushrooms, or you just did it those times in the float tank?
Oh, look, I did it pretty big back then. And every now and then I'll go back in, depending on like where I'm at.
Yep.
I see that, you know, it does get used recreationally a fair bit, which I don't believe. It's a plant-based medicine.
Microdosing.
Yeah, it's a plant-based medicine. I've done some microdosing, which I found okay. It was good for mood. But the deeper experience is when I get to a point of challenge and I'm holding on to something, I can feel it. That's when I'll go and do an experience and get the release that needs to happen. And also too, like I get some mad downloads, mad visions. You know, over time I've had, you know, great conversations, and I'm processing and unlocking things that I was unable to reach, you know, from a neurological point of view, you know, that was happening inside me. So, yeah, great experiences. And I do it only if and when is required.
Yeah.
Not to become a habit into escapism, because if you're starting to use it from a point of escaping, which at one stage I did, and I learned that it's not for that. And you look at it from a medicine point of view, it's like it's a time to go and create. You know, and again, I could get mocked for this, but I see it as it's a plant based that's, you know, that God put on this earth for a reason. And that's my theory. That's my view. I think these kind of things are little tapped in resources that we're able to do if done in the right setting in the right place.
Definitely. Have you done ayahuasca before?
No, I haven't done ayahuasca. Hey,
there's something on my list that when I feel called, because as you said, you gotta have that calling to go do it. You don't want to just go do it for the sake of doing it. Hey, I did ayahuasca. Like for me, it's a calling.
Yeah. I've been almost there a few times, and there's been a few times where I'm like, hey babe, I'm heading overseas to Peru, and she's like, oh, but I'm like, oh, because again, you know, it's something that if done in the wrong settings, intention's pretty big, and you got to be with people that have got the right intention, and that's the thing. When you're getting to a point where you're going to, you know, be vulnerable in a state of spirituality, you need to have the right people with the right intention. Like my brother went to Peru in his last 12 months of living, and yeah, he videoed it. So I've got all these videos from over there, and some of the insights that he was getting, like it was pretty amazing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the insights that he was getting even around himself and what he's been holding on to, the resentment, then this, then that. It's pretty big to what he was getting the ability to tap into inside himself. Because you remember, all this is coming from inside you as well. So these are things that are unlocking the code inside yourself.
It's scary for a lot of people to unlock that, is it?
Oh, dude, 100%. That's why, I mean, that's the thing is it's you know, we are just one big Rubik's Cube. And and that's why I believe that you've got people that can live a lot freer than others. And then you've got people like, you know, Elon Musk, who is able just to create and dominate in certain areas as well. I mean, he's a psilocybin user, so you know, it's the ability to be able to then open up and connect into a different realm inside you.
It's a beautiful tool if you have the right intentions.
100%. And that's the thing is the biggest thing to come back to is intention. I think that's big on everything that we do, whether it's, you know, using plant-based medicines, whether it's a relationship with God, whether it's a relationship with your family, whether it's a relationship with yourself. And I believe that there's a lot of men out there too that don't even understand the intention of why they exist.
Yeah, that's a big one. And speaking into intention when it comes to your family being a father, you mentioned to me the other night that you sort of got a second chance when it came to fatherhood. What are your intentions with it now, with being a father and showing up as a dad?
For me, for many years, I had like this view of what I wanted to be. And what I get to do right now is just be. While I was working, while I was doing all the things, I was like, oh, I'd love to be doing all this stuff. But then I'd make excuses of being busy or work stuff on or other things, or I'm just tired, I'm worn out. So breaking down the excuses that stop allowing me to actually be. So that means packing up the motorbikes and taking the kids away. It means packing the motorbikes and taking the kids away and just getting action. And I want to, and I'm going to frame my words there. I'm going to make that a monthly mission for myself to create outcomes. And that's part of, I suppose, the system that I've developed at the moment around, it's a software solution where I'm in it daily, which allows me to do my monthly missions on my body, being, balance, and business. And what does that what does that actually mean, and how do I get the outcomes I need to? So what are the things I've got to do with my kids? What are the things I've got to do with my wife? Even if it's simple things like I'll put in my schedule, go buy flowers, go do this, go do that. Now, as a businessman, whatever's in my calendar, I typically show up and execute very, very well. So now I've built a system based around that as well that allows me to show up in a way that's not business, but it's everything that creates a better body, being, balance. So, working on those 3 paradigms, which I've never focused on before, and I've only been really focusing on that now for 6 months, through a new structure, and it is creating different outcomes. So that is part of, with my kids, is showing up intentionally. That's the word that I've been using of recent. Intentionally making things happen. Intentionally, hey, let's go for a bike ride. Let's do this. Let's go for a walk. And making things happen versus just letting things happen.
And that's the massive thing of intention, and it doesn't have to be going on big family holidays. Like as you said, go to the park, go for a bike ride. People make the excuse of, I'm working all the time, but then they come home and they're just on their phones or they're watching Netflix. It's like, what are your intentions when it comes to being a parent? You don't need, yes, we all want money to go and do all these amazing things, but at the end of the day, your kids don't care about that. They want your time and your presence to create those memories with.
Big time. And that goes back to me from the question that you asked really earlier on, that relationship with my dad. And I remember that, like, one time where he was laying on the couch, like, I just want to go and play footy in the park. And he's like, I'm just tired, kid. I'm like, okay, I get it. And he was. I mean, he worked his friggin' ass off. But just having those moments and the joy that I see in my kids' eyes when I can just kick a soccer ball to them, and it's like, again, it's just glowing. And it doesn't take much. And that's the thing that I've overcomplicated, thinking that I need to do all the big extreme things. I do have a nickname called Extreme Tim. So, like, in that, what does that really mean? It is just showing up. Hey, kids, do you want to go to the beach? And like, yeah. And then they have the best day ever. And again, there's a lot of dads out there that do this really, really well. For me, I've struggled. I have struggled at being that dad. Because, again, I had a certain model of the world as I was growing up. And I'm trying to exceed that model. And in exceeding that model, I find it very difficult. So, like, I even let on my kids and, like, what do you want to do? Hey, you tell me what you want to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard, man.
It is. It is definitely a struggle, and something that I've struggled with, especially transitioning into the business full time. A lot of your energy is going to the business because that's what's paying the bills, and it's going to allow me to grow and create the life that I want. And in your head, you're like, you got to sacrifice this for a little bit of period so you can build this up, so you can have more of this. But a lot of people just get trapped in sacrificing their family and going all in on the business. And yeah, it is difficult, and it is something that I'm still challenged with, and I think you will still go through, and everyone's going to go through, but we can have both. And that's the big thing of this podcast, is you can have the successful business and the happy, healthy family.
Yep.
It may take longer because you're putting more energy into your family instead of sacrificing it. But at the end of the day, when you stand on top of that mountain, at least you'll have your family with you.
100%. And that's the thing is, first of all, you've got to have yourself. So once you've got yourself and you're showing up for yourself on a daily basis, so what are you doing? What fuel are you putting in your body? What training are you doing on a daily basis? What connection have you got with yourself? Are you doing, meditation? Are you in the scripture? Are you, what are you learning that you can bring yourself closer to who you want to be? Just in that allows you to show up in a completely different way, to become intentional, Because if you're not intentional about what you do for yourself every day, how can you be intentional expectation of yourself to be, have that same access and turn up that same way for everyone else, whether it's your kids, your wife, your business, people like employees or even customers and clients. I believe that that's a biggest part to come back, and you really need to just nail that. And once you nail that, then everything else is a ripple effect into what really happens. And that's part of what sacrifice does, because sacrifice for me for years has been, to put everyone else first, make everyone else happy. And like don't show up at the gym because you got to show up in meetings, or you got to show up where other people are. I'm rescuing, so I had to learn to stop frigging rescuing everyone else and start rescuing myself. And that's the biggest part. Once you learn to show up in your identity for who you want to be, then you're able to show up in glorious ways for everyone else, and especially for your kids. And the biggest thing I'd say for you is just to stay intentional. Like you are intentional with your business, you understand what you want to do, where you want to go. Stay intentional with the life that you want to live with your kids and your partner.
Tim, I want to finish on this note of, you've achieved the business success, you're working on the family. What are you most proud of?
I'd say for me, it definitely, look, I'm proud of the accolades and achievements that I've done in business. The biggest thing that I would say is personal growth. I wouldn't have, I suppose, the family that I've got now and the support that from them that I do have. And I wouldn't be able to be who I am now without being on the journey of growth. I believe business has just been a tool, because I think business is a tool to come in and trigger the crap out of you. And it really does reflect everything that your insecurities, your battles, your demons, and it brings that out, especially when you've got over a couple hundred staff. Everyone else's patterns and triggers are also triggering you as well. So in that, it has really been digging deep in continuing to work on myself, and I'll continue to work on myself. I still reckon I'll probably have that phone call the day before I pass away with my coach going, okay, because that's what I believe it is. And I think that as we go through life, if we're not working on ourselves to show up in a completely new way daily, then we're just accepting what's happening around us, and we accept the life we've got. We accept the things that are happening to us. We accept the mindset, the way that we project, and the way that we're showing up in the world. So I'd say that's it. That would be it. And then secondly, out of that would be my family, and just being able to provide and give them what they've got.
That's beautiful. Tim, this has been an amazing conversation. And for the people out there that want to follow you and maybe work with you because you do retreats as a mentor.
Yeah, so mentor is where we do the retreats and men's work. And then we've also got some courses coming up soon.
Yep.
Based around working on different frames and supporting people being able to bring, their body being balanced and business all together, and how can they obviously achieve a life of success in all areas of life. And that's a big passion of mine because of where I've been and what I've sacrificed. So there'll be stuff like that coming out soon.
Awesome. And best place is Instagram to get all that?
Yeah, look, Instagram, Facebook, either one. Can jump on those pages and find me through there. Send me a message, DM me, and I'll get back to you.
All right, Tim. I'll put all the details in the bio, but man, thank you so much, bro. This has been an amazing conversation, and yeah, I got a lot out of it, and thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Hey, Nick, and I really appreciate you having me on here, mate. And it's been a great chat.